Having children would probably permanently disable me. Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Shayna. I am happily child-free. I also do a bunch of other things, but I focus on that here. So let's talk a little bit about some of the quiet reasons why many people decide to be child-free, including myself. So in 2017, I started having a lot of weird things happen to my body in the November, December area, to the point where on Christmas Eve, I could not stand up. I could not roll over in bed. And that was the day that I went to the hospital, was immediately hospitalized. One of the woman that was like at the very front of the hospital that like checks people in, I knew her from high school, and she was like, "Oh my God, Shayna, what are you doing here?" Mind you, I'm in a wheelchair at this point. And I was like, I can't feel my legs. So I was immediately hospitalized at a spinal tap in the ER. Like, it was the whole works. A couple months later, mind you, this is a whole wild story. I'm skipping over many large parts of it, but I was eventually diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called Neuromyelitis Optica. I know it sounds like a transformer. Most people have not heard of it. You have heard of its very common sister, I would like to say, multiple sclerosis. Yes, so a lot of the treatments that I have to do are the same treatments that people with MS have to do. And also the way that it attacks my body is not the same, but very similar. Let me explain. So we all have the autoimmune system. It is the system that helps to fight off infections, bacteria, that keeps our body fully functional, right? Nice and healthy. What happens with people with MS or NMO is that our T cells, B cells, I'll put it in here, which one? I can't remember which one. I'll put it somewhere here. So one of those cells, the ones that are like the little pew-pews, like imagine that there are like little police officer cells that go in and they fight off the like foreign entities to the body. And they're osmosis jones. Right, so there are cells that are your osmosis jones, your white blood cells, and then they shoot off little pellets, little pew-pews against the invaders. The guy, the guy, he's like in osmosis jones. They fight off him. Now, imagine if all those little pew-pew bullets went and attacked your body instead of the bad guy, because your body thinks that your body is the bad guy. That is what happens with NMO and neuromyelitis optica. Now, the main difference is that I'd like to think of those little tiny bullets in multiple sclerosis as lots of little tiny ones, pew, 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 as opposed to a singular bazooka that is NMO. Now, for MS, those little tiny bullets are constantly firing off. Right? Some people, they get fired off more often than others, but they also mostly attack the brain and the spinal cord. For NMO, that giant bazooka either attacks your optic nerve or your spinal cord. Sometimes your brain, but not so often. And when it hits, it takes out a huge chunk, like my T1 through T5. So imagine your entire lower back lit up like a Christmas tree on an MRI. It was terrible. The doctor's like, "Oh, that's not MS." Right? Now, what does all of this have to do with being child-free? So I have to take semi-annual, so every 6 months, I have to get my blood infused, which means that, think of a little infuser, right? You have your tea and it infuses the water with the essence of the tea. So I have to get my blood infused with something that will help to calm my nervous system, my nervous system down, my autoimmune system down, so that way it does not attack itself. Now, what does that actually do when it calms your autoimmune system? Sometimes it can, not sometimes, generally it turns it off for a little bit. Like imagine turning off and on your computer, right? And that stops my body from wanting to attack itself. It clears my body out of all of the B cells that are just kind of like just trying to figure out where in my body to attack. They haven't actually attacked yet, but they're trying to figure out where to go. Calms my body down from that, and so I can be more susceptible to other kinds of infections during that time. So I have to be very careful about who I'm around, what I'm doing. I really have to be proactive about not getting sick during that time, because it can spiral out of control. Now, here's the thing that my doctors made very clear to me very early on. If I happen to get pregnant during that time, mind you, you got 3 trimesters, 9 months, I have to get my blood infused every 6 months. If I have an infusion during that time, the infusion would kill the zygote, would destroy the zygote. The future pregnancy, no matter how long I'm along the way of, it's terminated, right? Now, that would mean that I would have to miss an infusion in order to get pregnant. And we don't want to miss an infusion because every 6 months, I want to say it's the B cells, it's little pew-pews. Yeah, B cells bullets. I think that was a thing that I told myself, the little rhyme that I told myself. So, those are like building up in my system over every 6 months, and then the infusion clears it out, and then they build up again, and then it clears out. Now, if I have, and it reaches a certain point every 6 months, and then I miss the infusion, then it keeps going. That's just loading the bazooka. That's just loading a bazooka during pregnancy. Now that doesn't sound wise, now does it? During the initial onset of my autoimmune disease, which mind you, when I say initial onset, I mean I was already paralyzed at that point. I could not poop. They would not take me out of the hospital until I had my first poop in guess how many weeks? Yes, I said weeks. Guess how many weeks? 2.5 weeks. I did not poop for 2.5 weeks. Not that I was in the hospital for that time, but prior to the hospital, which so technically that means that I didn't poop for almost ooh, that's terrible. Ooh, haven't said that out loud before. Anyway, so, and then after that, when I finally was able to like get dismissed from the hospital, which mind you, all of the nurses that I had, we all had this running joke where it was truly a game. I want to say that somebody was placing bets on when I was actually gonna poop because they were all way too invested. They were all way too invested. Am I adorable? Yes. Am I hilarious? Yes. They were all too invested in what was going on with my poops. Moving forward. So it took me a full year, 12 months, to be able to know just how much of my body I would actually be able to get back. 12 months from one autoimmune attack. I do not want to go through that cycle ever again. Never again. And then to leave that cycle, and now you're a mom. Now you have to take care of somebody else while relearning, potentially, how to walk. And mind you, every time that you get an autoimmune attack in this way, you never fully go back to 100. Currently, I am around, I would say like 96, 95. I've done so much better than a lot of people expected me to do, including my doctors, full disclosure. So let's say I'm at like 95 now. I was at 100, I'm at 95. If I get another autoimmune attack, my 95 is my 100. Which means that if I get hit, and now I'm a little bit older. When I first had my autoimmune attack, I was like 23. I was around 23. So truly like peak. I was in my peak. Little baby Shayna was going through it. So I'm at 95 now. I get hit again. I start from here and then I try to build my way up. Let's say I only make it up to like 70%. That 70% then becomes my 100. And then every time you get hit, that 70% is now your 100. Let's say only make you to 50. 50% is your 100. Like you can't go back up. You can't go back up. What I have is what I have. I'm not trying to lose what I have. And this is not to say that this is everybody's story, because it's not. And for the people whose story this is similar to, they don't have to share this story. I'm just choosing to, because one, I'm a journalist, so I talk about things all the time. But also, I like to talk. And I am fine letting my story speak on behalf of other people whose stories are similar, especially people who can give birth, because they don't need to tell you. People. Now, I do happen to know somebody who has this autoimmune disease, and she got it while she was pregnant. I met her in person. My doctors recommended that I get connected with her and like trying to form a support group as I was relearning how to walk and like run, drive, all of those things. I met her daughter. She's on a very strict, I met her husband, briefly met her husband, but she was on a very, very strict food routine, wellness routine, all of these things. She was blind. She was blind and bedridden for a lot of her pregnancy. She actually showed me the part of of her house where she was bedbound to for her pregnancy. Mind you, she did not know if she was going to be able to get any of these things back because NMO attacks the optic nerve and the spinal column. So her baby came, fantastic. She slowly started to regain like different elements of like moving, walking. Mind you, she's not at 100% anymore. Will never be again. Her husband, thank God she had a loving, attentive partner. Thank God, because he picked up the slack in such a major way. Not the slack as in like that she wouldn't. She literally could not. He had to be both parents. He had to be both parents to their child, and he had to be a full-time caretaker to his wife. Without knowing if things were going to change for the better. The way that I am so happy that they had each other during that time, because the amount of men that just leave at the slightest inconvenience, one, but especially when it comes to leaving during a medical episode of the woman. There are articles about this. You know what? Let me find an article about this. So this is an article from The Guardian titled Men Who Leave Their Spouses When They Have Life-Threatening Illnesses. Yes, it's from 2020. That's only 4 years old. 4 years past, the evidence still stands. And the story starts with a woman named Christy Sanchez. Now, she talks about how when she was young, her stepdad, who was a huge part of her life, left her mom when she had stage 4 cancer. And that's how the story begins. And then she wrote a tweet one day that just set so much in motion. Let's start from up top. The tweet that I just mentioned, which was shared more than 300,000 times, set off a wave of responses underneath. My mom had stage 4 cancer and my dad and brother let her clean every day till she died. Smiley face. Red 1. My mom was in the hospice and her husband was out and about in a new sports car picking up single moms at my siblings' after-school sports programs. Absolute garbage. Red another. And if you're hoping that these are rare horror stories, there's some comfort to be had. Most people, regardless of gender, do not leave their partners when they get sick. Yay! We would hope. In a 2015 paper, researchers tracked 2,701 marriages using a study on health and retirement and watched what happened when someone became unwell during a marriage. Only 6% of cases ended in divorce. Okay, sounds good, right? Let's read more though. It cut off a little bit at the top, but that same study showed that when partners leave, it's normally men. One study from 2009 found the strongest predictor for separation or divorce for patients with brain cancer was whether or not the sick person was a woman. That same study showed that men were 7 times more likely to leave their partner than the other way around if one of them got brain cancer. Now, while I know one healthy, happy example of somebody that of a guy who stayed with his wife throughout a serious onset of this autoimmune disease, I don't want to test my luck, especially when it comes to children. Especially because in hearing her story, her onset happened because of pregnancy. I'm not gonna test it. There's too much to lose, and I don't want what there is to gain, so I won't. That's all. Now, dating as somebody with this kind of autoimmune disease is interesting. It doesn't change a lot, but personally it has made my dating a lot more effective. Thank God I don't have any horror stories. I know that happens for a lot of people, but that's not my situation. But the thought of whoever I'm going to be like partnered with for however long, like my autoimmune situation is under control. Like me and my doctors have it under control. It's always nice to have a support system, but like I'm good. The idea of managing my autoimmune disease as a single parent, because once again, the moment that you sign up to be a mom, you are also simultaneously signing up to be a single parent, because that child is forever. Your marriage is not necessarily forever. Yikes. right? I didn't sign up for that. I didn't sign up for that. And I don't want that. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. Okay. Yeah, if you have any thoughts, comments, all of those things, type them below. Like, share, subscribe, all of those things. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys next time. All right, bye.